Marketing is more complex than ever before, so it stands to reason that marketing measurement is also increasingly complex. There are more channels and more data points available to marketers than ever before. But how do all of these channels and data points help outcomes? And how does measurement help marketing leaders explain their work to business and finance leaders? That's what we're discussing today with Matt Spiegel of TransUnion. Welcome to Conversations with MarTech.
Hi, everybody. I'm Matt Spiegel, the EVP of TruAudience Growth Strategy at TransUnion. Let me just unpack a little bit what that means. First of all, TruAudience, for those of you who don't know, is the brand name of our marketing solutions products at TransUnion. TransUnion is a company that is in a bunch of different product areas. Most people know TransUnion as the company that provides credit scores. And that is a big part of what we do, but we're also actually in a number of other product areas. We have what we call communication products. We have fraud prevention products. And then we have a suite of marketing solutions products, which we label TruAudience. In my role with TruAudience, I do a lot of different things in this growth strategy role. One part brand ambassador, one part client liaison, one part business development. Really, my role is to make sure that I partner with our product organization and our various go-to-market teams to make sure we're delivering on behalf of our clients. And that has a lens both in terms of what we do today and also where we're taking it and what comes next. In terms of what we at TransUnion focus on, what is the suite of marketing solutions we care about? And what that means for us really is about three core sets of product areas: identity resolution, audiences, and measurement. And ultimately what our focus is how do we enable data-driven marketing? And so we're really answering questions like, who are your customers, by doing identity resolution and connecting different data dots. We're helping companies figure out their segmentation strategies through both custom audience targeting, through sourcing lots of different data sets, through being able to distribute that data. And then from a measurement perspective, we spend a lot of time on marketing outcomes. And again, our mission here is how do we help marketers and the ecosystem that supports them, continue to both invest in and improve the value from data-driven marketing, because we believe that world is continuing to grow, and we think we can have a meaningful role in making that continue to be excellent.
All right. Thanks for joining us. Let's start with marketing measurement. So much of the things that marketers focus on have been kind of tossed upside down over the last few years. How are marketers in general feeling about their measurement these days?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's definitively a mixed bag. eMarketer's done some research that says many are happy, but it's not necessarily that the trend line on that isn't actually good. So 62% of marketers say that they're reasonably confident with their marketing. The challenges of that group, it's either plateaued or in some cases going backwards. And it makes sense that we're in this kind of relatively happy, but not super happy stage. Why? Well, one, we're certainly in an era where marketing measurement can be as complex as ever. There's more data signals. There's more different ways to measure outcomes and performance in marketing. And so part of what's happening is that choice, right? And choice can lead to a lack of comfort and a lack of confidence. Underneath the hood there, I think what drives some of the further challenge is the fact that there is a lot of change in terms of what data is available, but we've also kind of as an industry, written a myth. And that myth is that when the cookie was dying, we lost the ability to do more detailed attribution. And that just isn't true, but it also kind of permeated the industry. And I think a lot of marketers felt like, I'm losing something. I'm losing the ability to have really good attribution analysis. So what I'd say is I think we're in a stage where marketers in many cases aren't as confident as they'd like to be. They are faced with or have the benefit of having as many choices as ever. Some of those choices gives them pause. And there's some challenge in that data signals have changed, and you need to work harder to be able to connect the dots of a good strategy. And in too many cases, there are data silos, which cause these problems. And so to answer your question, it's a mixed bag with a decent amount of confidence, but a lot of room for improvement and still a lot of change happening.
Right. There has long been this friction between roles like the CEO and the CFO, very numbers focused roles, and marketing leadership like the CMO. And I feel like measurement is in some ways central to that whole issue, because if marketers can't trust their data, how are they supposed to talk about their efforts and the effectiveness of what they're doing with other leaders in the organization?
Yeah, listen, I totally agree that measurement is the key to that C-suite alignment, right? And it is true. There's a lot of situations where marketers don't feel they have the voice they want to have in that room. You mentioned trust in data. I think it's interesting. I think that's a way to phrase it, but I think the maybe the bigger challenge or the more detailed way to think about it is you might have trust, but there's not a line of trust around that data, right? Which is to say this, right? So it's clear that where the C-suite, right, those that are counting the numbers, right, you have to prove to your CEO and your CFO that outcomes are happening. They can't just be tracking exposures. That's not news, but that's still an evolving reality. But more importantly, I think one of the hardest parts is that a lot of the data that's out there, I'm going to tell you some research we've done recently in a second, that proves that brand exposure, that upper funnel advertising drives lower funnel outcomes. There's data there, but it's still pretty new and it's not always trusted. And so what I've seen historically is you have marketers that are trying to translate the value of upper funnel brand building activities into proving that it's driving outcomes without the data to do that. And that friction, I think is really, or that's where the friction really exists. So our code talked about some research. Let me just tell you quickly about it. We've done a lot of work in what we call brand as performance. We partnered with the MMA Association. We worked with a couple of big brands, Ally, Campbell's, and Kroger. And this was a detailed research that looked at their campaign spending over time and their conversion over time. And what it showed is that when you do upper funnel advertising, it increases consumer favorability in your brand. Go figure. Good brand advertising should increase favorability. But again, that's still an exposure or a preference metric. That's not an outcome metric, right? But we then have found that actually that increase in favorability leads to an increase of likely conversion by 4 or 5 times. Okay. And the second thing we found is that when you then track conversion over time, we looked at this over a 10-month period, and we found that the lift in conversion over that time, when you connect good brand top upper funnel advertising with more bottom funnel work, and you stay consistent in that, or you have both running for a long time, that the lift in conversion over a 9 to 10 month period is as much as 6x in the best case scenario. And in some cases only 1 to 2x, but still has a lift, right? So what am I saying? What it says is something I think we instinctively as marketers, and actually I think most consumers appreciate, right? Which is that a known brand, if you know the brand, if you have a favorable perspective of that brand, you're more likely to buy their products. We all have the favorite brands we love, and we kind of get that. What I think the marketing community at large has lacked, though, is enough data to prove that's not anecdotal. There actually is science behind that. And so, again, somewhat long way of saying, yes, you're right. We need to solve for this friction. In order for marketers to feel comfortable that measurement is going to solve the outcome problem, we need the type of data necessary. But I think it's possible. The data is there. It's not always connected, but I don't know if it's wrong data. It's making clear choices about how to go about solving that problem.
How does that hold up for challenger brands? I mean, you mentioned like 3 brands that are pretty well known in their sectors, right? So, but if you're the challenger and you don't have the track record and the brand awareness,
yeah.
How's that work?
Well, I think it speaks to when you reach that scale problem, right? Like clearly we have lived in a world where a number of brands that none of us knew through lots of social platforms get in front of us in a very targeted way, and we buy products from them. I know that I have bought way too many products from my, Instagram or Facebook feeds in recent months and years. Many of them I like, by the way. So I think what I would say is that over time, to drive scale, now you need more brand favorability to increase the size of your potential audience. And so I'd say the stats would hold. But the point would be, if you're investing in creating a preferable brand view of consumers, that will lead to better exposure or better conversions long term. That without that, you're going to reach a scale barrier, all right? Because you'll get the sweet customers, the sweet spot of customers that really like that product idea and are going to buy it no matter what. But to then continue to scale, you're going to need to continue to invest in that brand favorability idea.
AI has been sold as a cure-all for just about everything in marketing. Obviously, content creation, ICP work, and just about anything. What is the potential role for AI when it comes to measurement?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, first of all, we got to talk about that. And so much of what we think about these days when we talk about AI, we're really talking about the new power of all these massive scaled LLMs. And we somewhat can quote unquote ignore, if you will, the fact that our industry has had machine learning type algorithmic AI for a long time. I know that's not really what you're highlighting, but I think it's important to say there's a certain level of analytic automation that has existed under the hood here for a long time. But your point is one of, hey, with these LLMs, what happens now? And listen, there's no doubt, the ability of LLMs really do two things. One, they increase efficiency, and two, they can increase propensity, right? They can find things that we couldn't otherwise find. Now, the reality is in the first part, I think in measurement, there's a huge opportunity, right? So many processes are being automated that will move things that used to take months to weeks, weeks to days, days to hours. So I think there's a massive opportunity to just speed the cycle of measurement and get more data in the head of more marketers more quickly. I think that's a huge value. On the improving kind of outcomes side of things, or like finding more needles in a haystack, listen, I think it actually in many ways comes back to the first point, which is we've got great data scientists, and this industry does, TransUnion does, lots of places that find those needles a lot. But if we can do that more quickly, and if they can spend more time searching for those needles in a haystack, then we're going to find better performance models. We're going to find more trends that matter, and we're going to just increase speed of the ability to optimize campaigns. So I think it's a way for me of saying I want to be careful that AI is not some silver bullet. It doesn't change the fact you need some really smart data scientists understanding what the data is telling us, but it's you give them more to uncover the results that maybe they were historically spending time having to put them together.
All right. It's early 2026. We hear this episode. We talked about AI. We talked about the C-suite relationship in marketing. We talked about measurement. If we have this conversation a year from now, in the opening weeks of 2027, what do you think we'll be talking about?
Yeah. Some of the same, for sure. That's the nature of
only because some of these these conversations have gone on for years.
Yeah, so right. Exactly. Some of these things continue. But listen, I think what we're finding and what I'm seeing a lot right now is I see a lot of momentum for innovation in lots of forms of marketing, including measurement. I see a lot of trials going on. I see a lot of marketers leaning in to test new things. I see that translating to different types of metrics and measurements that are allowing a variety of new strategies and media investments and marketing investments more broadly. I think a year from now, what we'll likely be telling stories that say we'll be able to more clearly point to a ton of marketers and the ecosystem at large, technology companies, media companies that have embraced the changes that are here, which is, again, it's a combination of leveraging AI, but more than that, right? And this is something I think is really, really important in this conversation, which is AI only works as good as the data you have underpinning it. And so part of what I think we'll be spending more time on, or will be more clear maybe a year from now, is that the marketers that are really able to benefit from all this advancement in AI are going to be those that spent a lot of time figuring out their data foundation, start really understanding who their customers are, start really being able to link performance back to customer records, et cetera, et cetera. I don't have to go down that whole thread. My point being is it's going to be a world of those that have really leaned in. Like, we're going to have lots of interesting success stories. And then we're going to have a world of people that are still trying to figure out how to do it and maybe feel stuck. All right. And so hopefully what that means is we'll, generally speaking, be in a world where people are pretty excited about what's possible. We'll feel a little less hype and a little more real. But we'll probably likely still be having similar conversations, because the chance that in a year, the ecosystem at large has evolved as much as we all might think it could or should is highly unlikely.
Yeah. I think, I feel like I'm starting to see two groups among the vendors. There are those that seem to be very thoughtfully and strategically talking about that data foundation that you just mentioned, right? And building the tools, your AI, your agents, whatever it is you're trying to build. If the data you feed into them isn't good, they're gonna create a mess.
Yeah, that's right.
You also see too, though, vendors who, refresh the homepage and suddenly AI appears everywhere.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's easy to flash AI on a lot of screens. And I don't want to discount the importance of, investing in those types of technologies. We're spending a ton of time up and down the stack, from internal infrastructure to product enhancements to connecting different types of products across our suite. But listen, there's no doubt that we've seen this. And when I spend time with our technology leaders and our analytical leaders, the point that, we've just highlighted here in the last minute, I think is super critical. This is the core is a data challenge. If your data lives in silos, if you are not connecting the dots, if you can't link a customer exposure to your customer record, if you've got Matt listed as 5 different devices in your customer database, if you don't understand that I and my wife have kids here and that we can't picture that household, and that when you message us for household products, like we're one and the same, right? Like all those connected things. If you can't do those things, if you don't have the data infrastructure to make that possible, then whatever you're feeding your AI engine is going to come up with predictions that will not be as good as you would hope. And you will find yourself wondering why I didn't find the lift that I was expecting. And ultimately that won't be because AI is, not worth the hype. No. These tools are really, really powerful. But they're, again, as you've said, and I've highlighted, it's only as interesting as the data you feed it.
And that is the problem that predates AI.
Sure does.
Matt Spiegel, Executive Vice President, TruAudience Growth Strategy at TransUnion. Thanks for joining us on Conversations with MarTech.
Mike, appreciate the time.